Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And we are joined live once again by Viktoria Hamma here on the Zoomcast and podcast. Excited to have our hypnotherapist and friend joining us today. Also, she deals with chronic pain, weight loss, and so much more with all her modalities. Let's welcome Viktoria back to the show. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you doing, Jill?
I'm doing well, getting ready for the big Christmas day, and it's exciting. And you're up in Ontario. You're dealing with some snow right now, right?
Yeah, so we're getting, anywhere from 30 to 50 centimeters, which is a lot.
Yeah.
That's probably a few feet.
Oh my goodness. Well, look, you got the green on, I got the red on. We're excited for the holidays here and excited to talk to you once again today. Would you mind just introducing yourself to everyone? Tell us a little bit about what you do. Thank you.
Of course. So I'm Viktoria Hamma. I am a hypnotherapist and wellness coach. I deal a lot with chronic pain and weight reduction for health reasons. I also am a massage therapist and a personal trainer.
Wow.
And I see people virtually as well as in person in Muskoka, Ontario.
Beautiful. Excited to have you here. And you're a hypnotist. How do we say it? Hypnotherapist? Sorry.
Yep.
And what are some of the benefits to that? How could you help people with that? Would you mind sharing?
Yeah, so it's actually really neat. Hypnotherapy can help for a wide variety of reasons. I mean, some people have experienced it for just simple things like quitting smoking, or I've helped clients with like quitting to bite your nails, but it can even be really helpful in places like food addiction, sugar cravings. It can be helpful for fears, phobias, even for sleep. It can help physical symptoms like chronic pain and managing pain symptoms. It can even help with addictions. And it's actually been, there's great research to show that it's actually quite successful when it's used with other therapy for addictions.
Beautiful. And let's talk more about hypnotherapy for the holidays. I mean, weight loss is chronic pain we talked about, but in particular, just as far as the holidays, do you find us overeating, overindulging? Or do you have a lot of clients come the first of the new year?
Yes. So it's funny you say this because I actually just did a open house for a friend of mine who has a company called Sweet Sobriety, and they actually focus on food addiction and sugar issues and things like that. So I actually just spoke on how hypnotherapy can help with that. And I think, definitely North American culture, but worldwide, we really do kind of come together around food. And we use food as this social connection. And it's almost easier to connect with somebody over a meal than it is without food in front of you, right? Like that, even in social events where we're not eating a meal, we always have hors d'oeuvres or little snackies or whatever. So a lot of that is just because food makes us feel good. And when we get food, especially, there's a lot of interesting things that come with food. I mean, just eating certain food like sugar, it actually releases dopamine into the body. So dopamine is one of our pleasure drugs, and it's our seeking drug. So it actually encourages to seek out more of that. And not only that, but actually when your stomach stretches a little bit, when you get full, you actually get a hit of dopamine from that as well. So unfortunately, all of these things kind of compile to make eating something that is really comforting, that our body loves to do. And I mean, there's also reasons like it's important to eat. We need it for sustenance.
Yeah.
But the volume and the things that we choose to eat, a lot of it comes down to those patterns that have been ingrained for a long time. So I mean, myself personally, as a young child, I struggled with food. I was adopted and I had some, food insecurity and all of that. And I didn't realize young, obviously, how much that affected me. But I used to, when I was young, hoard food, and I really, felt that almost physical, visceral attachment to food. And I had to eat it quickly because you never knew when there was going to be more.
Yeah.
And as you grow, those feelings don't really leave until you replace them. So I had to work on that, even just for myself, to have a better relationship with food. And, a simple thing like, there's a lot of people I'm sure that can relate to not being able to leave food on the plate because you feel guilt, or you feel like, well, it's just a few more bites. But that's actually a pattern that can be really unhealthy. And over the holidays, it would be interesting if you just stop for a second and think about how many times you're doing that stuff automatically, subconsciously.
Wow, it's amazing. Wow, and thank you for sharing your own personal story with that, and letting us know that there's people who suffer through so much, and you it takes a while to adjust and get better, but you can get better and you can overcome things, and that's what you're here to do, to help also as a coach like this. And I know today you wanted to kind of focus on the hypnotherapy, right? What else in
Mhm.
particular did you want to kind of dive down and break down for us today?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of misconceptions about hypnotherapy. I mean, we see those stage hypnotherapists and we kind of feel like, if what is hypnotherapy? Are they going to make me do a bunch of things I don't want
Yeah,
to do? Are they going to control my mind?
yeah.
What is going on? So I like to just start by letting people know that hypnotherapy is actually a natural state that you go into oftentimes throughout the day. So it's actually when your brain goes into what's called a theta wavelength.
Hmm.
Your theta state is actually, interestingly enough, a state that your brain stays in the early years of development, because the
Okay.
theta state is the most suggestible state.
Wow.
And so when you're young, what you're trying to do is see the world around you in your environment and see what other people are doing. And then you mimic that, because if it looks safe or looks unsafe, then you're going to make decisions based off of that. So your brain is in that state for a long time. And that's why a lot of our struggles go back to early childhood, because we learn something in those really formative years mentally that our subconscious held on to. So this theta state is just this relaxed state of mind. So if you've ever been dozing off to sleep and you're kind of asleep, but you can hear everything that's happening around you, that's actually a theta wavelength state. So that's the state you're in when you're in
Okay.
hypnosis.
Okay.
So it's not scary. It's actually quite relaxing. And I find a lot of clients, once we start doing hypnotherapy, they actually want to stay. Like when it's time to kind of wake up and come back to the world, a
Yeah.
lot of them are like, no, it's so
Wow.
relaxing. So it is a very relaxed state. And I can't make you do anything you don't want to do.
Uh-huh. It's not, that's what people get scared of.
Yeah. Yes, 100%.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And
And
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I'm just curious how it works. Like, you got to be willing to do it. But I don't think I've ever been under hypnosis myself. So I'm someone who'd be a little nervous or like anxious, like, and scared. And how do you
Mhm.
deal with people with that anxiety ahead of time?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because there are a lot of people, because again, there's this idea that I might not be in control. And control, unfortunately, is a theme that is in almost everybody's life in some ways, because control often makes us feel like we're safe. And so when I have somebody who's really, really hesitant, maybe they have high anxiety disorders, things like that, sometimes what I'll do is I'll actually teach them how to hypnotize themselves, so they can realize that they are in control the entire time. It's not something that I'm forcing on them. It's their
Hmm.
choice.
Yeah.
So yes, there is those few people that are more difficult to hypnotize, but often
Okay.
it comes from that state of struggling to be able to relax in your own body. So we do some relaxation techniques and things like that to just get everything to kind of settle down, because once the nervous system can settle down, that brainwave can switch. So
Yeah.
we use different visualization techniques and things like that, because the brain is actually really in tune with visuals. It loves visualization, it loves pictures and images, and it's much more focused on pictures and images than sometimes even reality. So this is why we can use that imagery to get you into a more relaxed state, and then reframe sometimes situations or issues that occur.
Wow. Wow. And normally, how long is a session?
So typically a session is anywhere from about 45 minutes to an hour and a half. It depends what we're working through. If I'm doing a group session, because sometimes I will do group sessions that are a little bit more generalized, as in, this group session is just going to be on self-esteem, or it's just going to be on, you know, social phobias or something like that, then it's a little bit shorter, because I don't have to individualize it to the person. I don't have to go back into what's called regressions. Whereas when I do individual sessions, what we do is obviously I have you fill out an intake form and you figure out kind of what your main points are that you want to work on. And interestingly enough, oftentimes they are really connected. So even though you think you're there for, let's say, food addiction, it could really be more about shame and guilt. And the food is just one of the ways you deal with shame and guilt, right? So sometimes there's a little bit of detective work we have to do to figure that out. And one of the ways we find this out is I actually get you to go back in time in your subconscious, and your subconscious mind is very emotional. It's not logical, which is hard for a lot of people who are highly logical. and it will bring up situations that impacted it and that it feels is important. And this is really important because when we're consciously thinking about these things, they say, that was years ago, like I was 7 years old, it doesn't really matter anymore. But your subconscious never let go of it because it was an important emotional moment in your life.
Yeah.
And so using my example, I mean, when I got older, I was like, well, I was 5 years old. Sure, I used to do that. But like, I know that I have enough food now.
Yeah.
The problem is my subconscious never really let go of that thought. I had to actually work through that and retrain my brain that this is the new reality. So going back into those what are called regressions often gives us a really clear emotional story and theme throughout our lives.
Interesting. Thank you so much. Let's remind everyone how we could reach out to you, please.
Of course. So you can find me on social media at VIKKAH, or you can find me on my website, www.viktoriahamma.com. And that's Victoria spelled Viktoria.
All right.
Hamma, Hamma.
Perfect. All right. So where, let's talk about the subconscious beliefs, right? Where do they come from? I know, can we dive into that a little more?
Of course. Yeah. So subconscious beliefs are, like I mentioned, a lot of it is childhood, not necessarily though. They can happen later on as well. And it's usually surrounded by an important memory or experience we've had, or maybe it wasn't important to us now, but it was important at the time. So a great example is, I had a client who she struggled with a few different things, addictions, bulimia, now, food stuff. And when she goes back into her regressions, she remembers she was really young, 4 or 5 years old, and she remembers looking down the hallway and the bathroom door was open and her mom was vomiting. And her mom closed the door. And she remembers as a 5-year-old thinking, I hope mom's okay. So then that thought and that visual stuck with her. And then you compound that with, then she is always looking for her mom's love. The really young brain sometimes associates the two. Well, if mom says she's okay and she likes to vomit, and if I vomit, maybe we have something we can kind of, compare notes on, and we can be more like each other. Maybe she'll love me. So a lot of these things happen young because our young brain is emotional. It's not logical. I mean, I don't know if you've ever tried to logic with a 4 or 5-year-old.
I have a 5 and 7-year-old. I do it often. Yes. Not easy.
Yeah, it's not, because they don't connect that way. Their brain doesn't connect that way. They connect emotionally. And so what's really interesting about the subconscious mind is that when people kind of tell me they don't believe in hypnotherapy, I kind of laugh in a sense, because look at marketing. All the marketing schemes, tricks, everything, they've recognized that they can get you to buy things and they can get you to be more engaged in whatever they want if they play on 2 things: your fears, your hopes, your dreams, which are all emotions. And then the other thing they do is repetition.
Wow.
And those are all the things that the brain and the subconscious hold on to really well. So if you can do those things, and in childhood, oftentimes, it could be something as simple as, my mom said, I wasn't smart enough for that, or I'm too small to do that. And if that comes up as a theme and repetitively enough, that becomes a core belief. And then when you try and move past that as an adult, your brain's like, no, that doesn't make sense. You've already told me we're not good enough. So this is where that subconscious kind of is such a huge part of the equation that a lot of people don't know how to address, because again, it's subconscious. It's not something we're consciously noticing until we slow down and we're able to access that.
Got it. Wow. So now we have a 2023 coming here, and a lot of us want to set better plans, better intentions. And what would you say? How could we really use this to help guide us through, and give us some examples of what people may want to do in the new year? I mean, weight loss being one of them, obviously. What else? Thank you.
So let's start by saying that the brain doesn't work well in the future.
Okay.
It is very here and now. So if you want to make goals for the future, you kind of have to trick your brain into it. And you have to say, so let's use, weight reduction as an example. I am slimming down. My metabolism is fast, versus I'm going to lose whatever. My metabolism is going to be better. Using in the moment mantras like that are very right here, right now, and very visual and concrete. Like it's almost, when they say talk about those SMART goals, it has to be really specific. The subconscious mind can understand and utilize that information better and much more easily and much more faster than if you do it any other way. So I often encourage clients, I always call it a low risk, high reward treatment. Use these kind of mantras and affirmations, whatever you want to call it, because your subconscious is always listening. And it's one of the easiest ways to try and get the goals and the, everything you want in life without breaking your back trying to do it. And you're working with your mind instead of against it. So think about if you make a list of 5 items that you want to kind of work on for the new year, break them down, pick an item, and then really look at what the picture of that item is. So if it is, let's say, weight reduction, what does that look like to you? How in your body does that look? What do your clothes look like when you lose weight? What does your face look like? You have to make a really, really vivid picture for yourself. Once you've done that, then you want to attach an emotion to it.
Okay.
What are you going to feel like when that happens? What emotions are going to come up for you? How are you going to react differently to social situations? How are other people going to notice you? Because those are all emotional things. And when you can create a really vivid picture and match it with a really strong emotion, your subconscious is really going to hold on to that idea and that thought. And it's going to be way easier to try and create it. So again, if your brain knows, oh, this is what they want, and this is exactly what it looks like, and this is exactly how it's going to make us feel, it is way easier to create that. So if you do that for each line, you're going to be way more successful. Once you figure out what the picture and the emotion looks like, you can create a sentence or an affirmation or a mantra about it. And now you have the specifics to make it really specific.
Got it. Okay. In the new year, I want to make more money. I want more income. Is that a mantra? I would have to work on that, like to get another job or explain. Yeah, if you can use that as an example.
Yeah. So, and money is a big thing, right? So, again, you're saying I want, as in it's a future.
Got it. I gotta get this right. Okay.
And it sounds silly, but it's, I make money easily. Money comes to me easily.
Money comes to me easily.
I am able to make a change in people's lives with the money I earn.
I'm able to make a change.
Right? Because there's that emotional piece, right?
Okay,
what's the emotion? What is it going to give you emotionally? And then, so you really have to change the verbiage. And money is a big one. And money is also a tough one because we often need to heal our relationship with money, because depending on where you came from, maybe money was never available to you. And so to believe that now money is available for you is a really hard thing to overcome. So when you're making these mantras, think about, if I was writing a letter to young me, would they believe that this is possible? And if not, then how am I going to make them believe that this is now available for me? And again, the more you say, like, money comes to me easily, money is something that will be available no matter what. I don't have to worry about finding money. Money comes to me. Because there's a very interesting book I'm reading right now called Power versus Force. Okay. And it reminds us of like this balance that's always in the world, emotionally, physically, mentally, whatever. And I mean, in physics, if you try and force an object, there's always going to be counterforce that happens to that object. So when you try and force things like money to come to you, like you dive after money, you're always going after it, you're always going to have some kind of counterforce against you. And this is why a lot of people really, they try hard, they're getting all this counterforce because they're trying to force it. And then they get frustrated and give up because they're like, I keep trying and the world's against me and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Instead, it's not about not doing anything. It's about moving towards your goals, but not forcing it, knowing that it will come to you. Because when you know something's going to come to you, you no longer are a hungry predator after it. Right? And I think if you think about it in that primal sense, if an animal is starving, it needs to find food. It will find food in sometimes not the great places. It will maybe find the sick animal to eat, and then it makes itself sick. It might find other sources of food that are easier to find, but not as nutritious.
Yeah.
Whereas the healthy animal who is not starving will wait for the right animal to consume or the right food to consume. because it doesn't need to chase after this other stuff that may not be as good for it.
Interesting.
So I think when you can change your mindset around this is happening and it will happen to me,
Yeah.
you no longer have to force yourself to attack things that may not be your path.
Interesting. All right. Thank you so much, Viktoria Hamma. We still here. We have another 8 minutes left in the show. What else did you want to share with us?
Yeah, I really love talking about the subconscious because again, when you learn some of these tips and tricks, it really helps you to recognize where you've been making mistakes. So a big thing that I already talked about is emotions and that visual. So when you can really visualize something well, create a good picture, then you can also attach emotion to it. It's more likely to happen. This happens in the opposite as well. And this is where a lot of phobias, fears, and general roadblocks come from. Because if you visualize, let's say you get nervous going to Christmas parties, and you know that there's going to be somebody at that Christmas party that you've struggled in a relationship with. When you are creating that visual of like, you run through the scene, right? You walk in, you can see what the room looks like. You can see what people are wearing, how you're feeling. You've already created a feeling in your body, and then you're playing out the vision in your mind. When you do that, you're actually going to change how you approach that situation when it becomes reality. And when you change your approach when it becomes reality, now all of a sudden you're almost setting in that predestination for yourself. It really comes down to, you're the determiner of what happens to you. So if you can change that ahead of time, this is where you can deal with a lot of anxieties, because you can envision, okay, so even let's say driving on the roads right now up here, it's really snowy and slippery. You get nervous. Instead, you'll say, I drive slowly and carefully. I can see that the roads are slippery, but I don't feel nervous. I feel confident. I move slowly. Everything seems to go well for me. I'm able to stop at every stop sign. If you create the vision, when you go into it, you'll be a lot better to handle it.
Interesting. It's like I have a brother who literally just called me last night saying he got into a car accident. Showed me a picture of the car. He was FaceTiming me, but you don't understand. Just 2 months ago, he totaled his car. Someone hit him. Wasn't his fault, but he's got this negative energy. He's always getting to accidents. He's always losing a job. He's always in a fight with someone, and everything is woe is me. And he lives his life. He's a negative Nancy, and everything is, oh, I don't have this. I can't, just so negative. And I feel like when I called my dad last night to say, Anthony got into another accident, I'm like laughing about it, not in a bad way, but like, again, he's always like he doesn't do anything positive to help create a better thing, or he's just that person. He's always in accidents. So I said, you just brought up something to me, like if he had a more positive mindset, right? I mean, these are the things that you can help in vision. If you're looking at a vision board, he is just not a positive person. My mother was the same way, God rest her soul. But is that something to be said for, someone who's negative is not going to be surrounded by positivity? Like, how do I describe that? You know what I'm getting at, but I can't say it. You're the expert.
Yeah, no, 100%. So we attract the energy we give off, right? And and it's funny because people throw around the energy word, and sometimes it's funny because they'll say it in passing, but then they'll say they don't believe in energy, which is almost is quite comical. But if you've ever walked into a room and you can just feel like, oh, something is happening, that's because it's when they've done actual studies, all of our organs actually give off an energy signature. Like it's a measurable thing they've been able to do. Wow. And they've done it with the heart specifically. And they can measure your heart and the energy it's giving off as far as 2 meters away. So
2 meters. Wow.
Yeah. Which would be, I don't know how many feet. Sorry.
No, but that's a lot. Yeah. Okay.
It's a lot. And, this is important because we do attract what we want. Because have you ever had somebody who's having a bad day and you're like, oh, but look, the sun's shining. And they look at you like, I don't want to hear that the sun's shining. Did you not hear that I'm having a bad day? Mm-hmm. So I had a really interesting experience a couple of weeks ago. I was on my way to work. I was kind of running a few minutes late, but not crazy late. And I was in the car with my smoothie, and I spilled my smoothie all over my front seat and all over my bag. I was really irritated for about 10 to 15 seconds. I pulled over, I tried to clean it out right then and there as much as I could, and then get back on the road. And it's funny because I recognized that old me would have let that moment at least stay emotionally charged and keep me irritated for the morning, a few hours, maybe the whole day. Now that I'm more aware that like, I'm frustrated. Okay. But can I do anything? Okay. So it's spilled.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Right. And I was literally already like moved on in my head while I was cleaning it up. And because I was able
Wow.
to do that, then when I saw my clients that day, I didn't share any of that negative energy.
Wow.
And I think what was even more amazing is that when I realized I would have never even realized the growth I had if I didn't spill my smoothie. So spilling my smoothie was actually a really big blessing because it made me able to see how much I've grown. So when we can reframe these situations as not negative, but an opportunity or as something that we can learn something from, it changes our outlook. Instead of the world's against me, it's like, well, the world is trying to teach me something. What is the world trying to teach me right now?
Yeah.
And that change in the wording makes such a huge impact on your life because now new opportunities and new ways of thinking are available to you.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you so much. Interesting. And just with the new year ahead, I mean, is there any packages you're offering, any specials that maybe you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah. So I am in the process of creating I'm going to be launching some group coaching. So group coaching is going to be available, and group hypnotherapy. And then that way it's a little bit more financially accessible to people, but it also is a way to help start to change that mindset and create those better patterns so you can be more successful in other areas of your life. And there will be some new courses coming out in the new year as well. And lots of things on the horizon. You just have to keep following me on social media and my website as I post new things happening all the time.
Great. And could you share the website and of course, social media pages again as well?
Of course. So it's at VIKKAH is my social media. And my website is www.viktoriahamma.com.
Perfect. Pleasure having you here. Thank you again for sharing this holiday show because we're festive today in the red and the green for those of you just on the radio. Yeah, Cassie can't see her. We're on the Zoom too. So really interesting. There's a lot that we could change, a lot we could do. And with the new year coming, I mean, a great topic for today and how hypnotherapy can help us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jill, and have a great new year with lots of more positive thoughts.
Thank you. You too, everyone. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Kwanzaa. I don't know all the holidays, but happy holidays. I guess I'll be generic. You have a fantastic day, sweetheart. Thank you again for joining us and have a great holiday. Bye-bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.